Hello friends, this is Scott. I'm sitting in my kitchen area by my fireplace. I thought I'd come to you today with kind of an educational video. This topic came to mind as I was at the nurseries lately picking up plants, and I see a lot of people buying plants kind of at the wrong time of the year to be planting them. So today's tutorial is for kind of the novice to intermediate gardener. I'm going to go over some basic plants that you should plant when. Prior to Memorial Day. I'm going to talk about summer vegetables also. And I want to talk about what kind of plants should you buy from a nursery and what kind of plants should you always plant by seed and not ever waste money on plants. That's also a big thing I see is people grabbing a lot of things that they could have just grown by seed themselves, but they end up paying a lot of money that they don't need to. So let's get started with what kind of vegetables can you plant before Mother's Day. Now, I live in Utah, which is Zone 5 in Salt Lake City. If you're somewhere else in the country watching this video or anywhere in the world, you just have to kind of look at these as cool season or cold season crops. So whatever months your last freeze, there's always a couple months before the last freeze that you could plant cool weather vegetables. You can also plant most cool weather vegetables in the fall, late summer, early fall, so you could have a fall harvest also. So I'm going to talk about some of the basic vegetables that you can grow, when and how and from what form, whether it's seed or plant or a combination of both. Okay, this video is going to pertain to people that do not have greenhouses and are not starting their own vegetables indoors or in a greenhouse kind of a setting. You can always grow different plants and vegetables from seed if you have an earlier, warmer growing environment that you can use. So this is video strictly for people that want to plant outside so that you know kind of what to do and when to do it for the outside basic gardener. Okay, there's going to be a little glare off this whiteboard, and I sat here trying to think of all the vegetables that could possibly come up in the growing season. I'm not going to have them all, but these are some of the basics that you can do before Mother's Day. Again, I'm Zone 5, anywhere between March and May. These are the vegetables that you can grow. I prefer to grow them as early as possible in March, but it just kind of depends on the weather and how the ground thaws up. The first vegetable that I plant is onions. Okay, you can buy those in plants or sets. Again, if you have a greenhouse, you can plant from seed, and I guess you probably could plant from seed and see if the season is long enough to be able to grow onions, but I use plants in sets that I buy at the nursery. The next one is radishes. Now radishes, you always plant from seed. You should never buy plants of radishes. They're very fast maturing. They come up in 26 to 30 days, they're done. So therefore you just sprinkle them in the ground and plant them direct seed. Now all lettuce mixes, that includes spinach, which I have listed here, but all the arugulas and all the different types of lettuces can all go in prior to the last frost. Broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage, as well as Brussels sprouts, can all go in, and they're very tolerant of light frost. So those can go in between March and April. Potatoes. Now I plant potatoes from the seed potatoes you buy at the store, at the nursery. You don't go to a grocery store because they have sprout inhibitors that are sprayed on those potatoes to keep them fresh in the stores. So you go to the seed stores, and you always want to buy those early in the season because they tend to run out, and once they run out, they will not be ordering anymore. I always like to buy a few extras so that I can plant maybe a month or two later so I can have some new potatoes more in the fall. So I have kind of a succession planting on potatoes. Now peas are the most cold hardy seed plant that you could grow. I sometimes plant these in February if the ground is workable. You stick them in the ground, they start coming up. If it gets cold, they just slow down, and then they pick right back up where they left off when it warms back up. Peas are not heat tolerant, so you want to get them in as early as possible so that you can get your harvest picked before the sun beats down on the plants, and it's real rough on peas. Now leeks, you could plant those from seed, again if you have a nursery, but I buy the little plants, but they're almost like a grass. So you could probably get away with planting from seed because what you buy at the store is so small anyway that it's pretty much the same thing. Turnips and parsnips and carrots are all seeds. You can plant those usually mid to late March into early April. Now those can be succession planting too, which means that you just, plant some, wait for them to come up, and then plant some more, and then wait another month, plant some more. That way you have them not all mature at the same time. And you can plant those all through the summer too. Now kohlrabi is another cold tolerant plant that you can plant at the same time. You're planting the broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage if you can find them. A lot of times the nurseries will get certain plants in and then they won't get the others. Like this week I got cabbage, broccoli, or cabbage and cauliflower, but I was unable to get broccoli because they had not gotten it in yet. Now garlic, that's something you plant in the fall. Now what you do is I just buy them from the store. Those are the one vegetable I do buy from the grocery store. Separate them out into each clove and then plant those in probably September, October. They'll come up and then you just mulch them in. They'll sit there all winter long until spring, and then they start growing again, and then you get an early July, late June harvest. So these are the spring vegetables that I grow in my Zone 5 climate. I can also grow these in the fall for some fall crops. I can basically plant in late summer so that I get a fall crop. The weather doesn't always cooperate. The crops aren't always big, but you can get some nice tender fall vegetables also from this group. Now, one spring vegetable that I forgot that's very important to me is beets. Now, beets are another seed variety. You don't ever buy beet plants. You plant them from seed, but you can succession plant these all during the growing season. So you plant a row as early as you can, and then wait a few weeks, plant another row, wait a few weeks, plant another row, all the way into the fall. Now, in the fall, the beets may not be as big, but they're going to be sweet and tender, and you can always eat the tops in salads. Okay, here's the list that I put together. It's not an inclusive list of all types of vegetables, but it gives you an idea of what you can plant. Okay, the summer vegetables that I plant here in Zone 5, maybe a week before Mother's Day if I'm pushing it, if I can cover them up. But, if you plant seeds a week before Mother's Day, they're not going to be up anyway, so they'll be fine. So maybe a week before or Mother's Day, it's usually safe to be planting these types of crops. Now corn. Now corn is one of those I see at nurseries. People buy plants of corn. Never buy plants of corn. You just plant them by seed. There's plenty of time in the season to mature. It's a waste of money to buy those in plants. Beans, same way. Pole beans, bush beans. Okay, they are a warm season vegetable. They don't like cold. So as soon as in the fall when it gets cold, they're going to shut down, or they're going to go brown overnight if it freezes. Pole beans again, bush beans, same thing. Broad beans, all those are summer vegetables. Tomatoes, the biggest culprit of people buying early and planting them early. You may get lucky and you may not have a frost. Now if you have walls of water or other heat caps that you can put on tomatoes or buckets, if the temperatures are going to get cold, you can go ahead and plant those a little earlier. If you don't cover them, you will kill them. Peppers, these are hot peppers, green peppers, all varieties of peppers. They're a warm season crop. Don't plant them before Mother's Day. Eggplant. You buy them from plants, okay, like you buy peppers from plants. You buy tomatoes from plants, okay. They say in my environment that you can't get a tomato from seed if you were to plant it in the ground, and I think that's mostly true. But last year, my best tomato was a Roma that was a volunteer, and it produced so many tomatoes, and it was just from a volunteer seed. So sometimes you can get away with it, but generally not. Now, most of the herbs, there are herbs that are perennials, that like oregano and thyme and rosemary. You can plant those, plant them in the summer, but they will overwinter. But there are very sensitive herbs like basil, parsley. Parsley is one of those that may or may not survive in a frost. I had mine overwinter last year, and it's still alive. Squashes. Now, you can plant squash from seeds or plants. I generally just buy them from plants because I get a little later start to be safe, but you could plant it from seed and be fine. Same with pumpkins. Same with zucchini, you can do seed or plants. Cucumbers, you can do seed or plants. Tomatillos, you do from plants. Again, I talked about broad beans. You do those from seed. And sweet potatoes, you do those from slips. Now, if you're going to grow sweet potatoes, you either got to order the slips that are disease-free, or you have to basically grow them in your own kitchen, which you start basically in January, and then you have to grow them from a sweet potato, they immerse in water, and then you take what grows out of the sweet potato, and then you have to root those, and then you plant those. But those are very susceptible to cold. So those you want to wait till for sure Mother's Day to plant those. And usually let them go until the first frost, because they kind of need the first frost for the sweet potatoes to be sweet. If you pick them early, they're not sweet, that sweet. They need that little bit of a cold snap to kill them off. Now, so that's basically when you go to the nursery, these are the plants you don't buy until, just barely before Mother's Day or from Mother's Day on. Now you can succession plant beans, and you can do some of the other plants, but generally you want to get those in, and they're going to stay in ground all season, and they'll produce for you up until the frost. So these are the ones that go. Now corn, obviously those will come to a stalk and an ear, and when they're ready, they're ready. So corn's a good one to succession plant. Also, plant and then wait a couple weeks and plant. That way you can extend your harvest a little bit. So there you go. It's not very complicated if you kind of know the basics. Now there are other types of vegetables and that you'll see at the nursery that you may have questions about. Feel free to drop me a comment or a question. I'll tell you what to do with whatever you ask me. But these are the basics. So when you're at the nursery, they're going to have stuff that's not suited for your area for the time of planting. So you got to be aware of what you can and can't get away with in your environment. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if I can answer any questions, feel free to drop me a comment. And thanks for continuing your journey with me on living my best rural life in the city. Thank you.